Hey BookTube, Chelsea the Reading Outlaw here to do a single book review for you guys. The book we're talking about today is Searching for Sunday, Loving, Leaving, and Finding the Church by Rachel Held Evans. This is a book that basically does what it says on the tin, and it looks at the Christian faith, and it looks at Rachel's experiences inside various denominations of the Christian faith and how you wrestle with the Christian faith. I feel like I need to let you know up front kind of some of what my faith history has been, and it will help you, I think, understand why this book speaks to me so much. I was raised in basically what we call a twofer household in my neck of the woods, and that is you go to church twice a year. Christmas, Easter. That's what we did. We just picked whatever church was like physically closest to us. We ended up going to a Methodist church quite a bit. We also ended up going to a Unitarian church quite a bit. But religion was like never something that we regularly did. We didn't go to church. I didn't do Wednesday Bible study until I hit maybe 13. And then I fell in with a group of kids who all went to youth group. They all loved sharing that experience together. So I got involved in doing that, going on mission trips and mission work. And a lot of that really spoke to me as somebody who likes to give of my time and talents. That aspect really spoke to me. So I got baptized, I got confirmed, and then I started to learn some shit. And like, that's when I started to get uncomfortable, because there are politics within any branch of faith that I think can rub people the wrong way, especially the Christian faith, especially when you are a loud, bisexual woman who does not necessarily prescribe to gender roles and likes to be like vocally heard. Not all of those things always go over well in the Christian faith, let me tell you. So I spent a lot of my teen years wrestling and confronting and doing things like wondering how I'm supposed to have faith if I also want to do stuff like believe in science. So I stopped going to the church. I stopped going to the church except for Christmas and Easter. I went to a Unitarian church when I was in college with like friends of mine occasionally, and the Unitarians were the closest I ever found to like a denomination that jived with what I was thinking. If you don't know, the Unitarian faith, Unitarian Universalist faith, is like basically the most liberal Christian faith that you can possibly belong to, like branch of Christianity. It's real out there. Like, it's great, but it's still an established church, and there's just something about that continued to rub me the wrong way. So fast forward through college, fast forward through meeting my now husband, and his dad is a pastor. He was raised in the church. And so he introduced me to the church that he and his parents have always gone to, which is literally the biggest church in the denomination. The church that we go to, Church of the Resurrection, is huge. It is the biggest Methodist church. The main pastor, Adam Hamilton, he is like the dude in Methodism. Like, he is the guy. You can Google him. This church is huge. It's got a lot of money. It's in a very wealthy county. It's in a very wealthy part of the nation. There is serious dollars flowing through this church. But this church's kind of motto has always been a place for non and nominally Christian people to come to grow in faith. So they have always structured their entire church mission around people like me finding a church home in that church. And, you know, it worked. It has worked better than any other place has. There have been several sermon series there about wrestling with science. We have had sermon series that involve discussions with agnostics and atheists in the church on stage, open forum style, asking questions. We've had discussions about gender and sexuality in the church. We just got done last week talking about the problem of refugees and the duty that people as Christians have towards refugees, regardless of what your politics are. So no church is perfect. The fact that there's a lot of money and a lot of conservatism in the people of this church continues to cause me some strife. And there's a lot of things that I'm still wrestling with. But I tell you all of that story to let you know that the reason I loved this book so much is because I feel like Rachel and I were cut from the same cloth. Rachel Held Evans uses this book to break down the main Christian sacraments and then how each of those sacraments relates to modern people, basically. Modern, liberal people who believe things like evolution and that gay marriage is okay, and that turning away those of us who most need help in our time of need is the least Christian thing that you can do. So the book is built around a lot of the core Christian sacraments, things like baptism, marriage, the laying on of hands, communion. But she takes each of these different sacraments and she breaks down the way the historical church has been, the way the modern church is, and what the future of the church needs to be. And what I love the most is she says several times, and she makes a blatant point to say that what the church as an entire unit needs is not hip new worship songs. It's not cool coffee houses in your church where you can buy a donut before the service. It's not like young preachers in tight jeans and quippy t-shirts up there with a big power. Like, it's not that stuff. All of the things that the modern church is kind of trying to do to pull believers back in are not actually the things that are going to pull those believers back in. The things that the church as a whole needs to do are to have those tough conversations, to open their minds as Christian believers and open their hearts as a unit of Christian believers to ideas that on the surface may seem to fly in the face of previous doctrinal belief, other ideologies, and that can be really hard. Rachel speaks about a God and a Jesus that is one of charity and compassion and loving people through their mistakes. And so she talks a lot about how if we as a community of believers can't be honest and can't be openly doubting Thomases and can't wrestle with the questions that our faith brings us, then we're not doing it right. God doesn't want mindless believers. God wants people who wrestle both literally and figuratively with angels and with the issue of messages and with the issue of faith, because it requires faith. If it were easy, it wouldn't be faith. So I just feel like this book really spoke to me as a certain kind of believer and as a certain kind of Christian who's not even sure that's the label that needs to be ascribed to me. So if that's you at all, if that fits you at all, if my story rang true to you in any kind of similar way, definitely pick up this book. Please pick up this book. I listened to it on audio. If you're agnostic or atheist, or you're completely done with churches and the Christian faith, I can't necessarily say that I blame you, but just give this book a listen. Even if it's just in terms of like a sociological experiment or a modern history of introduction to religion, just give it a try. I think Rachel will introduce you to a class of people who may not be the people you think of when you hear Christians, who may not be the kind of people who you need to be thinking of when it comes to the Christian community, because there are so many out there who are working in the way that Rachel is working to create this on fire, revolutionary faith that is all encompassing for all people, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, color, poverty level, immigration status, first language, like acquisition, whatever the thing is, they're out there. They're just not always the ones with the loudest voice or the biggest congregation. So that's my review, I guess, my adulation for Searching for Sunday. Thank you to Kelly Jensen at Book Riot, who recommended this book and put together a whole list of books for people like me on the Christian faith who are wrestling. I will link that down below. It's absolutely a fantastic list. I'm assuming I've only read this book from it, but if this book is any indication, then it's so far so good. But please read it. Please give it a listen. Find it any way you can, and then come talk to me about it. Let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about faith. Let's talk about religion. Let's talk about how that stuff interplays with our lives. Do it down in the comments, but do remember that this is a safe space that I will work to create. And so be nice. Otherwise, come back next time. Subscribe, like, follow me on all the social medias. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have happy reading.